Welcome to the 3 Degrees of Freedom podcast, where we explore lifestyle engineering with our expert guests to bring you in alignment with your own 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, and financial independence. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are joined by Mr. Jordan Tate, a business coach and architect of his own freedom-centric living life. Jordan's expertise lies in reshaping the lives of underpaid and overworked business owners, allowing them to amplify income while reclaiming precious time. With a mission to craft intentional business that harmonizes financial success and personal fulfillment, he epitomizes the true pursuit of the 3 degrees of freedom: location, time, and financial. He's explored over 40 countries and lived on 3 different continents. As we said before, Jordan absolutely takes the cake and embodies the lifestyle that he advocates. And his superpower extends beyond his professional coaching business. It is the cultivation of healthy habits that elevate his life and those around him. Jordan, it's awesome to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks. That was a great intro, Derek. I'm so excited. This is my favorite topic. So
Absolutely, man. It's great to have you on. By the way, little cheat code. The introduction that I just read to you is courtesy of ChatGPT and a really well-designed prompt. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started here. Okay, we like to have the same question that we ask every one of our guests to start out, which is, which of the 3 degrees of freedom, that's location, time, or financial, do you feel you are the strongest in right now? And which one would you like to develop further?
So I've prioritized time freedom above the other two. I also have location freedom, but to me, time freedom is the most important one of the 3 if you want to enjoy your life today and throughout your, the future. I'm currently working on building my business and creating the financial freedom that I know will just continue to ramp up my time and location freedom as well. But I've always known that for me, time freedom is the pillar.
That's right. I think that the time freedom component, I'm just going to jump in here to underscore that, because the time freedom is the ultimate currency in life, right? There's time and health and relationships and all those things that are unquantifiable, but ultimately boils down to time, because money you can always get more of, and location freedom, we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But I love that. And I think that, I resonate really well with you on that. And I think when people think of financial freedom, they're actually thinking time freedom, like what you have, and location freedom, which I understand you also have right now.
So true. So many people think that you have to trade all your time for the money that you can then buy your time back later. And I recognized that very early in life, and I thought that's a trap and I don't want to play that game. So from my early 20s, time freedom has been a really high priority. And like you said, I know I can get more money. I know I can save more money, and the more I learn, the more I can earn. But I know I can't get back the time I have today, the energy I have today. And so that's why I put it first.
100%. Let's go ahead and back up a little bit. I want to find out more about you, Jordan, because we met briefly before we hit the record button here. But, taking a look at what you've been doing online and some of the things that you've got going on, it's very impressive. And I just want to understand how you got to where you are now and why you went traveling and what you're doing to try to get to your point now. So I'll go ahead and get off my soapbox and just listen to you for a little while.
So to start, we got to go back to when I was in university, and I was studying geography. And the reason I was studying it was because I thought I was going to go into urban planning or architecture or something like that. I didn't end up that as a career, but throughout my degree, I took courses like the Arctic and geography of Asia and European history. And I just got exposed to all parts of the world. And so by the time I graduated, I knew I need to go and experience the world as much as I can. And I knew that the way to do that was not by taking 2-week vacations once or twice a year, because you spend half your time in transit. So when I finished university, I made it my #1 priority to save every dollar I could working. And then once I had 10 to 15,000 saved, I would book a one-way ticket somewhere and I'd start traveling. And I would live as cheap as I possibly could, because I knew every dollar I save means a little bit of an extension on how long I can keep going. And I did Europe, and I did Asia, and I did South America, and I kept going and going. And as soon as I had no money in my bank account, I would fly home. I'd I'd sleep at my parents again, and I'd start saving again for the next trip. So I did that for 4 years in a row. And it, like, although I had no financial savings and I was watching other friends build careers and, start to really work on their financial side of their life, I had this rich life experience and travel, and I was loving every moment of it. And so very early on in my life, I realized, like, I value that, and I always want to be able to travel more than 2 or 3 weeks a year. And I wouldn't accept a job that limited me in that.
That makes a lot of sense. A lot of people are probably thinking stuff, why didn't I think about that? Or why couldn't I do that when I was younger? Is this something that, like, started before university? Because maybe you had like a travel bug or something like that. Is that where a lot of this came up? Or was it truly just inspiration from school and saying, I just don't want to live that life? And did it come from conversations? I'm just looking for the exact moment where that spark hit you.
I had done a little bit of travel in my teens. I'd been to Italy once or twice growing up with a friend, but I was also inspired by my friends. I had other friends doing similar things, and it became pretty normal in my group of friends that you quit your job, you take all the money you have in the world, and you go backpacking and you explore different parts of the world. And whenever someone got home, they would tell us, oh, you got to go here and do this and that. So we kind of all inspired each other. And then we would do trips together. So it didn't feel like I was falling behind. And at the time in my life, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career. And so I looked at this travel as part of learning about myself and the world, what I'm good at, like, how do I interact with people? How do I show up? And I learned way more about life from 4 years of traveling than from 4 years in university.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I respect that a lot, because I've actually been doing the same thing. And as you know, we're both digital nomads, and my wife and I, we've been traveling together, and the stuff that we've been learning has just been incredible. Like, it's been great to see how other people live and not be stuck in the bubble of like what's happening in corporate America in the US, and just getting, having that one operating system to run with, right? It's great to see different perspectives for a lot of different reasons, not only for your own stress levels, but also to see how other people live and how, they're contributing to society and how they're approaching life, and just lots of things that you can use as cheat codes, so to speak, right? To get around some of the circuitry that we've been taught with and grown up with over time. And so I think that's really cool for that. I wanted to ask you too, my next question here, I think you may have beat me to it when we were talking last in the last couple of questions. Since your mission is to help owners balance financial success with personal fulfillment, I wanted to ask you, you said that you would save up money and then you go out and travel, and then you come back home, make some more money, and then go out and travel. I wanted to ask you more about, were you able to find a balance? Is that still your lifestyle now? Or have you been able to find some strategies to help get both, or make some money while you're out abroad and continue this lifestyle? Or how would you recommend people approach balancing this financial success with the fulfillment? And, how does that travel all feed into it?
Yeah, really good question. My lifestyle is different now. I don't spend the same amount of time traveling. I now, like, I have a home and a business, and I still, like, do a lot of travel. I rent my house on Airbnb, and I get out on the road, and that's still a big pillar for me. But what I find is a lot of people, when they start a business, they have this dream of they're leaving behind a corporate job or a thing that wasn't working for them. And usually what wasn't working was they were working harder than they wanted to be. They didn't have as much time off as they wanted. And so many people dream about, I'm going to be free. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to take days off. I'm going to take long lunches. I'm going to go on holidays. And then when you're building a business, it gets hard, and you work harder than you thought. And you get to a point where you realize, I've traded a lot of those things I thought I was going to gain by being a business owner. So where I come in and help people and help them balance that is recognizing it's one thing to grow a business, and you'll always find a higher revenue number and a higher income number, and that number can continue to rise and rise and rise, but you won't get the time back that you have right now, or the balance in your life, or your health, or your time with your family. So how can we set it up that when enough is enough, what's enough income to be happy, And then you know how much is enough time to work to earn that income. And I like to reverse engineer the goals and the process of getting there with them. But that's where I think most people get stuck chasing a higher number, and the number just keeps elevating, but they lose sight of the time that they're trading for it.
What are some of the, I know that this coaching business is relatively new, but perhaps you've had some people that you've been working with already before you've gotten this going to give you the idea to start this. But I was going to ask, what are some of the emotions and some of the questions that commonly come up when you're coaching people around this stuff? And how do you normally advise them?
There's so much fear and emotion and baggage wrapped up in earning money and in our status and our success. And that's part of our whole society and what's sold as success. So I try to shake that off, and I try to get to the person and to the core of, why are you running this business? What does success look like for you? And to give you a recent example, I'm working with a client who found that they were working essentially every minute of every day, 7 days a week. They were never off. They were always on, and they were doing it because they didn't feel financially secure, and they wanted to just keep. They're like, I got to earn more money so that one day I feel financially secure enough to then take space. But when we talked about it, we talked about what number would make you feel financially secure. We realized that one, they were way closer to it than they thought. And two, if they went past it, but they gave up all their time to do it, then they would feel like they had missed and they had failed. So we helped them. They're actually now working like 30 hours less every week while still making the money that they were making. But now they've bought back 30 hours of life, and they're taking vacations with their partner. And that's what it is about. It's about breaking free of the idea that you never have enough money and you always need more, and recognizing when you know what you need to live comfortably and happily, and you're earning that, then you can really dial in. Are you working the hours you want to work, and do you have the freedom that you need?
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love it. That's some real life-changing stuff right there that you're helping people with, taking away some of those probably self-limiting beliefs, some of those fears, some of those operating systems that are norm that people don't even think to question. I think that's a great service that you have for people, especially those trying to get some location and some time freedom, and even financial as well. I wanted to ask now, when you are coaching folks, do you have any tactical advice for people who just want to build some or get some more time back? Like, where do you approach that from? Like, how do you start to give people some techniques to maybe start coping? I'm hoping that we can get a little bit of a preview for some of the audience here so that I personally and selfishly can start using them as well if I'm not already.
Definitely. I love getting tactical, because
Yeah.
I think it's one thing to have the theory and the goal, but to actually know how to do it is important.
Yeah.
So I really focus on the person and how they're managing their time and managing their money. And we'll look at, what are you spending your time on each day? Like, what's your calendar look like? And get really granular with how much of this stuff that you're doing every day is actually getting you towards your goals, and how much of it is just busy work, or could be outsourced, or could be passed to employees, or systematized. And often it's the first step is just freeing them from the constant barrage of stuff that they have to keep up with as they're growing a business. And the second piece is then looking at their finances and saying, what's your current hourly rate? So you take what's your income right now per month, divided by how many hours are you really truly working? Like, don't lie about it, be true. That gives you your actual hourly rate today. And then we say, okay, what's your ideal income? What's the ideal hours that you want to work? Now that gives you your ideal hourly rate, and there's a gap between those. And just knowing that and being aware of it helps you start to make better decisions with how you invest your time. So, if you find out, and a lot of business owners are shocked when they do this math, they find out their actual hourly rate is like $30 or $50 an hour. And they're working so hard and they have so much responsibility and stress. And if they want to be at $100 an hour or more, they have to stop doing 30 an hour activities. They have to stop spending their time on all the little stuff that's consuming their time. And they have to start thinking about, How could I sell a bigger client? How could I create a new product to sell? How could I hire someone to buy back my time and keep me going? And that's the kind of couple mindset shifts that really quickly in within the first few weeks help people buy more time and earn more money.
Yeah, what I love about this, Jordan, is that like everything that works in life, it takes time, it takes energy, and it starts with mindset. And I love that you're approaching it straight from the mindset from the get-go, because that's how lasting change occurs. And I also love the point that you had about leverage, right? Because where my mind goes to is, right now I'm a big systems person too. So perhaps after this we can geek out about it. I'm an engineer by training, and I love building processes, and I have some assistants that are absolutely incredible, and they blow it out of the water every time I talk to them. And what I can do is I can leverage, a lot of the things that I do normally and just systematize as much as I can. And that allows me to be able to go out and, like you said, free up some time to go and travel. And so, since me and my wife have set up our businesses to be able to do it remotely, all we need is an internet connection. So for the last couple of years, we've been in Europe, and we just got back a couple months ago from being in Japan for 3 months, which was incredible.
Wow.
Highly recommend that for sure. And we're actually going back this coming year in 2024. And we're going to be using those systems that we've built out of necessity to try to not have us be chained to our desk while we're at these incredible destination locations, to be able to do that. And then once you have that system down, then you get to build other things, right? More systems. You can add more people and add more and more services to help more and more people, doing it through systems and not necessarily giving all of your time away. So that's one point I wanted to add. And then the other thing I just wanted to say before giving you a chance to comment on some of this, just from my own perspective, is that when it came to financial freedom, for those out there, for Jordan, your audience, and also for my audience has heard this a couple of times before. But when I first became a digital nomad, we were living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we had a San Francisco Bay Area mortgage, which was like, 10 grand a month, and, much more than that. So it's a lot of money. I had passive income coming in from my investments, but it was only half of what my goal was. And it took me 7, 8 years to get to that point. And I was just getting burnt out with my full-time job. So it wasn't until I realized that, like, if we just dropped everything and left California during COVID, this is what happened. During COVID, we started asking these questions because everyone was doing it, right? Could we not go remote? And if we started going remote, I started looking at Airbnbs all across the country, and I realized that, like, you can rent out a really nice place for like $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month, right? So now all of a sudden we've gone from, now that we are locationally free, we immediately gained financial freedom, but we weren't time free because we still had to work on our businesses, and I still had W-2 at the time and all of that. So I think that's super cool that you're kind of approaching this from the same perspective of, like, all these things are interconnected, and all it may take is one suggestion, one idea to just go mobile, right? Or maybe move to a different location, or, if you've wanted to step in and make a job change to be fully remote, right? Like, make that decision and commit to that. Then you can have all of this independence and freedom, right? So I don't know. I've said a lot. I just wanted to see what you thought about all of that, and kind of our story as to how we got to where you are as well.
Yeah, I have so much to say there. But quickly on an earlier point, I think the big shift, if you're a business owner and you're finding yourself trapped, is shifting from the employee mindset where you give time for money to the owner mindset,
Yeah.
where you build a business like you have
You're
that
investing.
operates and can produce output without you.
Yes.
That's when you have more freedom from your work. And if you build it that way from the start with the intention of systems and support and your mindset, you can go really far with that. And that's what Tim Ferriss was the poster child of this for so long. He inspired me and so many others to build an online business, go out and live the life you want. And that's why I'm really passionate about helping people do it. I love what you're doing. I have the same mindset around, financial freedom doesn't mean millions of dollars. It can actually mean way less. For me, financial freedom means you can afford to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it. And so part of it is what are your needs every month financially? And if you can lower those, you just buy yourself more freedom in the future. And then like location freedom really facilitates that. My partner and I, we, similar to you, we were living in Australia a couple of years ago, launched businesses from the back of a car we were camping out of. And we were joking as we were traveling up and down the coast of Australia in a cheap old car with a tent. We were like the CEOs of the trailer park. And we were just bouncing up and down the coast, but she was doing marketing and I was doing coaching and consulting. And the recognition that we're living for $100 a day right now in paradise while building a business that's creating the freedom to continue this path was really motivating. And so I think all three of these types of freedoms are interconnected, but that the financial freedom piece is where everyone focuses first. And if you come at it from the other side and you say, if I get time freedom first and I enjoy my life more and I have time and freedom to think about what do I want to do? What do I want to bring to the world? How can I add value to people without trading all my time? I think the financial freedom piece is like almost an afterthought. It will
Yeah.
come out naturally
Mhm.
if you're happy in your life and you're doing good things versus I remember grinding in a corporate job. I remember feeling like I had no control of my time and feeling trapped in it and still not making very much money compared to what I make now. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm never going to get ahead here. I'm never going to get the freedom I want. So that's where I encourage people. If these freedoms are important to you, you can do it through a job, but it's a different path versus doing it for yourself if you're a business owner.
I would also add to that, because it's beautiful. I love it. I would also add to that that people that are working corporate jobs right now, maybe, I mean, I'm not sure what it was like. I remember what it was like for me and how long it took for me to save up a whole bunch of time off. But if you go to your employer and you tell your employer that you want to take the summer off, right? Whether it's sabbatical, whether part of it is unpaid or paid, or maybe you want to do part time, maybe you want to work like a 20-hour and just see what they have to say. Some employers are flexible and some are not when it comes to this type of thing. But to do something like that, to preview the life that you are building and working so hard towards, that's worth it. Because what if you end up doing it, Jordan, right? And you find out, I don't like travel. Like, I don't like living out of a suitcase for 3 months. Or I don't like dragging my screaming kids with me. Or my wife doesn't like all of the location changes and the foreign languages. And it's just not for me. Do you know how freeing that would be for you to be able to preview something like that, to know that you're not putting your ladder up against the wrong building, right? Like that's kind of one of the reasons why we decided to do it also. But I love what you said, about thinking about these things now and looking at time freedom first, because that is ultimately the ultimate currency there. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Anyway, did you want to comment on that before we move on, or I just wanted to give you a chance?
Yeah, what I've looked at it as over the years of traveling and trying different things is it's all an experiment in finding what's my ideal life. And my partner and I have done that together and we're very aligned. And I know our ideal life is very different from other people's, but I think it's up to you to go out and test that. So, like you said, try living in another country, try living out of a vehicle, whatever it is that means freedom for you. And it's different. Some people think that sounds terrible. And I understand that totally. But if you don't try, you'll just end up stuck where you are doing the same thing and maybe never experiencing that stuff. I read an article recently in the Wall Street Journal on how people actually spend their time in retirement. And I thought it was so profound because so many people are bought into work hard for 40 years, save your nest egg, and then when you're 65, you get to retire and you get freedom and you're going to go on cruises and travel. What they found is most people, once they retire, end up spending 5 to 6 hours a day watching TV.
Yeah.
Their social life diminishes. They're not as healthy or energized as they used to be. And so I'm like, that seems like a really bad trade to outsource your happiness and your freedom to 40 years from now, 30 years from now. It's
It's really funny. I have you heard stories before? This actually happened in my family a few times and also from people that I know. But I mean, I don't think it's so uncommon that people, when they retire or when their spouse passes away, that soon after they start deteriorating in their health, or because they lose purpose, right? They lose the idea, they lose that purpose. So I guess our point And, my and your plea to our audience is, why not start integrating pleasure and work in a harmonious thing now? So that's your lifestyle from the get-go, like right now, because that is how you live a sustained life that's like rewarding all throughout. Because there's no question that when you're working, you're doing something rewarding, or at least you should be. If you're not doing something rewarding for your work, then I think this is a perfect opportunity to start to make changes to get there. It all starts with the intention. But there are so many things that kind of depend on each other, and these patterns, they repeat. And why not set up a sustainable pattern of travel and leisure within your work routine, and vice versa, right? Like have them embedded and complementing each other. And so that's what I love so much about, talking to you, that I can pick up that sounds like that's what you're trying to help inspire in the people that you're serving.
It is. And like the simplest way I can think about it is build a life you don't want to retire from, build a
Oh,
life you don't
awesome.
want to escape from. And you can do that. And I think the hardest part for people to let go of is the financial part, is what if I don't have enough money? How this must cost so much money to do it this way. It actually costs less.
Yeah, it's less.
You know, it costs less to live on a beach in another country,
Yeah.
costs less to prioritize your freedom and realize that you don't need millions of dollars to live the quality of life you want. You need free time.
Yeah, Jordan, let me make the distinction, because I think where people are getting confused when they say it costs more, because it is true, it will cost more if you keep your house and you try to do this. So if you keep your mortgage and you keep all of your high expenses where you're at, and then you go travel, of course it's going to cost more money. But, why not work with someone like Jordan, who can provide, or can basically give you an idea to be like, okay, well, keep the house, but Airbnb it or rent it out while you go travel for a while. Then someone takes care of the mortgage for you. Then all of a sudden it's not so expensive, right? To be able to go travel and live on a beach in Thailand for $80 a day, something like that. That's actually luxurious, actually. But I think you know where I'm getting at. And I love that you're making that distinction. And I love how you distilled it down to just build a life you don't want to retire from. I think that's amazing.
And another way you can do it, if, I recognize when you have a house, a mortgage or rent or whatever, if you can rent it out, that makes a huge difference. The other thing that I've done a lot of is house sitting.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you
yeah.
can get on, there's all these house sitting websites, and we've done them all over the world. And you go and stay somewhere for free.
Yep.
And in exchange, you take care of a cute little dog or cat, or I've done horses and birds and everything.
Yeah.
But when you get free accommodation in a place, your cost of living is basically food and activities. And if your house is rented out during that time, you've lowered your cost of living. And that's a huge key to time and financial freedom, is not having a really expensive lifestyle. And when you lower it, it means you don't need as much savings to live the life you want to live, to extend that free time.
Yeah, I love it, man. We actually have some really good friends who had an RV and went from house sitting place to house sitting place, and they both worked online, and they're just loving life right now. And,
So cool.
I love it. I love it. Now, I want to make a slight switch here, because I know we talked a lot about the how or the why. I want to talk about little bit more about the what, and get a little bit more granular on some of the things that you like to do and help instill with your clients and people that you talk to. You mentioned in the intake form for this podcast that you like to cultivate healthy habits. And it's pretty easy for me to understand, when you're living this type of lifestyle, you're going to need those habits, because if you're traveling a lot, I can speak from personal experience that you need to have things that are non-negotiable parts of your routine every day. Otherwise, you start losing that sense of stability and control, and not good. That's not good when you have a business. But you want to have something that's regular throughout all this constant change, right? Because a lot of people may be thinking, oh my gosh, this is so much change. So, what can you tell us a little bit about cultivating healthy habits, and how would you advise people to start building them or even identifying them?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've spent most of my 20s and early 30s now developing. And I've tried out dozens of habits, and some of them have stuck and some of them haven't anymore. But I think if you're trying to figure out some healthy habits or some changes you want to make in your life, the exercise that really helped me it's called the ideal day. You basically write out, what's my ideal day? And if you want to do it on a work day, pick like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So it's like, what's my ideal middle of the week? Not based on how I'm living today, but what would it look like? What time would I wake up? What would be the first thing that I do in the morning? How would I spend my time with my family in the morning or myself? Would I exercise in the morning, or is that something I do later? And you literally, you write it out and you describe it very clearly. And that can become the pattern that you want to live by, or the routine that you want to live by. So for me, I don't wake up to an alarm because I hate the jarring feeling of getting jammed and you're like, oh, I was sleeping and now I'm awake and I have to run out of bed. So part of my routine is I don't wake up to an alarm. I wake up naturally, and when I'm ready, I get out of bed and I start my day. And if it's a nice day, I get outside for a walk, do some stretching, things like that to get me in the right headspace. And then, middle of the day, I like to take a break and go for a walk as well and clear my head. And then a pillar for me is always exercise. So I finish every day at 4 p.m. and I go immediately and do some sort of exercise, whether that's yoga or weights or a run, because that connects me to my body and it puts my work behind me. So that's my ideal day. At night, I like to do social things and eat well and everything, but that's a day that other people would think is boring or doesn't have enough. And so write your ideal day and write it in as granular detail as you possibly can. Describe how it feels, describe what you're doing and with who you're doing it. And then you can look at what's the difference between today and that ideal day. What are the things that I would need to start to change? And it could be that you just start waking up at a different time, or you start exercising consistently, whatever it is. Those changes move you from where you are, if you feel stuck or dissatisfied, more close to that ideal day.
Do you find that people that implement this exercise, or maybe you yourself, have an issue with keeping that type of activity going for a long period of time? Does that come up, or is that even an issue? And how do you combat that?
Definitely. Like, habit formation is something that a lot of people struggle with, the consistency, and they struggle with the motivation. If you pick a habit that feels like a burden, like you don't want to do it, then maybe you start doing it for a few days, but eventually your motivation goes away, you have a bad day and you stop. So it's really hard to maintain that. And I'm much more about pick things that are only going to add value to your life. So, meditation is another one that's really important to me. And I tried doing it for years. I tried forcing it. It just didn't work. And eventually I found that if I do it right before bed, it's the last thing I do before I sleep. It helps me tone down and have a really good sleep and connect with myself before bed. And now I've done it for years in a row because I found the right time of day and I found the right benefit for me. Exercise is another one. People feel like it's a burden. And I just think if exercise is a burden, then you got to find something that feels right for you, whether that's walking or swimming or classes or any sort of thing. Even gardening can be a good enough physical exercise. So find something that works for you and experiment, and you don't have to be perfect. That's another one. Is if you've ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear, he teaches all of this stuff. He teaches habit formation and he's kind of the leading expert on it. But a big thing is if you start a new habit and you fail, everyone starts to be like, well, I failed, so the habit's dead. And it's actually more of a failure if you stop entirely. But if you just try again the next day, you get a little bit better. It feels a little bit easier. You build it up over time.
Yeah, great advice. I love it. Thank you for that. Thank you for making it more simple than I tend to overcomplicate these things and force myself to do things that don't feel right. And that's why I always struggle with the consistency piece. So just backing up and being like, life is too short for that, especially to force yourself to do something like this. Find an angle or approach, even if it's like affirmations or visualization or whatever. Find something that you do enjoy doing, because there's so many options out there with YouTube and all these apps and AIs and stuff. Like, there is something out there that can help you get to where you want to get to from some different creative angles. So that's why you got to talk with Jordan, the expert on this, to help find what some of those techniques are so you can get your habits in there. So love it, man. That's great. Good advice.
Yeah, just one quick thing there. I think of like our habits as the best description I've ever heard is a habit is a vote for the future self or the future we want to live. So when I think about, I'm 32 right now, when I think about being 60, 70, 80, I want to be fit and mobile. I want to have a good social life. I want to have enjoyed travel and be, feeling good about my life. And so I'm doing things today that will make that happen. I'm not worried about the long run, like all these responsibilities. I'm just thinking about what can I do today that will create that future I want to live. And that's as simple as some exercise and reading and different things like that for me. So that's how I've looked at it. And I think that can be helpful for some people is it's not about who you are today. It's about who you want to become.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's fantastic. So I have to ask you, this is my last normal question for you, and then we're going to hop into our rapid round real quick. And this is also a little bit self-serving here because you visited so many countries, like 40 countries. Is there any particular location that left a lasting impact on you or your perception of success, freedom, happiness? I just wanted to hear some of your top experiences while abroad.
I love this question. I could truly tell you like a love story about every country I've been to. There's always something I enjoy. But in terms of what you're talking about, how it's impacted my lifestyle and my view of success, I spent a few months living in Spain, and I really loved the lifestyle and the pace that they have there, where you would take a 2-hour break in the middle of the day for lunch and a siesta. And I'd go home from class where I was studying Spanish and I'd take a sleep. And then in the afternoon, we'd be out in the park and you'd have dinner at like 8 or 9 p.m. and then go out. And life felt just so much more like the flow was nice and life wasn't about work. Life was about enjoying life. And I really recognize that in Spanish people. And I've seen that in other places too. In Australia, it's a very similar society to Canada and the US. But what I found is they don't have the same workaholism because they're like, why would I still be working at 5 when I could be surfing or I could be at the beach or the park with my friends? Life is already so good. Why would I need to keep working hard to? And I think that's a prevalent thing in richer countries, but also, to talk about the poorer country that I've experienced this in Vietnam. I remember seeing people who are living in literal shacks, their whole family, just like when you look at it, you feel guilty about how much you have.
Yeah.
And yet they're all so happy, so fulfilled. They're spending time with their family. They're working really hard. And obviously they want to improve, but they're living in the present and they're enjoying their life. And you can see that all around the world when you get out of the office and you get out of the city you grew up in. And it helps break the mold of the only way to succeed and the only way to live a good life is to work for someone else or to work really hard endlessly until you can one day enjoy your life.
I love it, man. All these experiences are what's given you inspiration to live your own life. And now you're trying to pass that torch to other people. I think that's really cool stuff. And for those who are listening that want to learn more, stay tuned because we'll find out more about where we can get information from Jordan about where you can learn more from him or even talk to him about this specific thing or any coaching in the future. But before we go there, we have to end the show. I know it's been crazy. Like the time just flew by. I just had such a good time talking with you today. But we want to make sure that we hit in our rapid round, which is 5 questions that we ask every one of our guests that's meant to be about 30 seconds long each. So if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and just rapidly ask them to you at this moment in time. Are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, could you name any resource that was or still is essential in your journey to pursuing your freedom? So it can be a
4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss,
yeah.
which changed everything for me about what's possible. And The Third Door by Alex Banayan is all about pursuing your true passion and your own individual unique life instead of the same path everyone else follows.
The Third Door. That's a new one. I've definitely heard of the 4-Hour Work Week because I got a lot of inspiration too from it, but I like that one. I'm definitely gonna
I'll give you one more. The book that I recommend to people the most is called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. And it's about how we all ignore the fact that we're all going to die one day. And as soon as we recognize that fact, we'll think about our time totally differently. And he breaks down all of these things we feel about how we manage our time and how one day we can be happy. And that book changed my life. And I've given it to so many people since then.
Amazing. I'm looking at both of those. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Number two, if you woke up and your whole business was gone and all you had was $500, a laptop, a place to live, and some food, what do you think you would do first?
I think that would actually be really fun, just to play the game of how could I make my way back.
Yeah.
I would get on LinkedIn and social media, and I would start talking about the things that I've learned in my life, the lessons I've learned, and start just sharing that knowledge with people, because that's what attracts people and makes them want to work with you. And the great thing about the world today is you can connect with millions of people from your bedroom or from the beach or wherever you are, and just share what you know, your personal experience.
I think that's awesome, man. Cool. That works for me. Once you start doing that outreach, you start attracting people to you if you can have the right messaging and wording. And then once you have that network, it's pretty much the whole world is in your pocket at that point. So I love that. Number three, what does your self-reflection and goal setting practice look like?
It's funny you ask, because I literally this week started on my annual reflection process. So I do this every year. I've done this for probably 8 or 10 years now. I get out of my office and I get in kind of a clear, open, excited headspace. I usually actually look back at my phone and I review the last year of photos and remember all the incredible things that I did, the trips I took, the dinners I had, the fun things I did. So it really just gets me feeling very full. And then I do a bit of a reflection on, what did I learn this year? What were the highlights? What were the lowlights? Some challenges. And then I start to look forwards. And for 2024, for example, I'll write December 31st, 2024. What am I celebrating? What happened this year in my life? What changed? How did I grow? And it's unbelievable how you can project into the future and feel where you want to be and live. And then next year, I get to read it back and see how accurate was I.
Yeah.
And it's often like 70 to 90% accurate, which is cool.
Wow. I love that, man. There's a similar exercise that my wife and I do. At least we started it last year, which is very similar. You start by looking at all of your photos and writing in all of your wins and all of your challenges. And then you start saying, what are you grateful for? And then after that, I think is, what is your ideal self look like in the next 3 to 5 years? And who do you have to be in the following year? And there's like all these prompt questions that I got from this really great guy named, I think it was John Berghoff. It's an amazing, he has a business and he does something that I really look up to. He's got like this approach for leading seminars and events that's very unique, based on like appreciative inquiry and a bunch of different techniques out there for leading and getting people to ask questions as a major form of collaboration, rather than having like one person talking to an entire group. It's more about the presenter asking questions among the audience and having the audience interact with each other, and being the leader. So he's really good at this type of stuff and goal setting. And so it follows that process pretty closely. So I know we're way past the 30-second mark on this particular question, but yeah. I'm just curious, what did you learn that from? Or was this something you just started doing on your own?
I found it in the newspaper. There was a guy writing in the newspaper back when I still read newspapers. And he said, this is the annual review process I do. So I took that and then I added a bit of my own stuff to it. And I've stuck pretty consistently to it. I'm really happy to share all the questions and the process with whoever wants. So if they want to contact me on LinkedIn or through my website, I'll just share those by email.
Perfect. Sounds good, man. All right. Number 4, what are the core work habits that you attribute most to your success? Or what are the attributes that you bring day to day that helps you achieve your success?
A big one is, I know that my peak productivity is in the morning hours from about 8:30 to 11:30. Awesome. And so I protect that time for the most important tasks every day. And all the admin and the basic things and the annoying stuff that can fill up your time, I put that off until lunch or after, because I want my energy to go into what I do is I write, or I build training, or I do coaching during that time, because that's when I'm thinking clearest. It's when I can create the most. And if I do that well in the morning, the rest of my day is already won.
I think that's amazing. Being aware of your energy levels. I think that's brilliant. Amazing. All right. Last question I have for you is, what tool or process has become one of your most important time, money, or energy saving ninja magic tricks that you use almost every day?
For me, it's been I use an automatic investing platform. In Canada, it's called Wealth Simple. I know in the States, there's a lot of different ones as well.
Yes.
But I've automated my finances where once a month money comes out of my account, goes into investment. They've got an algorithm that invests it into index funds and ETFs. And so the biggest savings I have there is I literally never think about my investments. I never read the market news. I don't worry about trying to pick stocks or anything because I think it's essentially impossible competing with AI and everything now. So
Yeah.
I just trust the process. And over time, I watch my investments grow, but I spend less than a minute a month thinking about it.
That's great, man. I love it. I think you know exactly where to point your energy and you're intentional about it. And that intentionality is total power. So I love it, man. Jordan, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you here and also find out what you're about and find someone that's so similar to me that like I'm getting goosebumps right now. So it's pretty crazy. I love it, man. So
Yeah,
before you go or before we end for the day, can you tell the audience a little bit more about how they can get in touch with you or where they can find you?
definitely. At first, I just want to thank you because I love going on podcasts, but just to talk about this stuff and to see that you're sharing this message with other people is very important. And even if it helps one person break free, it's totally worth it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
If people want to get in touch with me, the best place is through LinkedIn. So I'm on there every day. I'm posting content, I'm sharing my ideas, and I'm happy to connect. And you just search Jordan Tate, and I should be the first one. I'm a business coach on there. And then second would be my website, which is www.theintentionalbusiness, all one word, .ca. And you can find out more about my services and everything there. But wherever you are, whatever stage you're at, I would love to hear what you're working on. And I'm happy to share advice and try to help you forwards.
Very cool, Jordan. Thank you so much. And also, by the way, Jordan, you submitted a bunch of information with all of your, a few like I guess it's all of your all of your social media profiles and any other info that you wanted to pass along inside of our intake form. And so those will show up on the show notes for this, as well as a transcript and some notes on a page for this specific podcast. So all that will be up there for you to distribute to your followers as well as to ours. And so once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jordan. It was awesome to have you here.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I feel like we could go for hours.
Yeah, definitely. And dear listeners, thank you guys also for listening all the way to this point in the podcast. Wherever you're listening or watching the podcast, please make sure you like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, or drop us a comment. We want to find out more about how we're doing so we can bring on more amazing people like Jordan and attract more listeners such as yourself. So please engage with us. We really appreciate that. We'll be appeasing all those algorithm gods out there. So thank you so much. Jordan, once again, thank you, man, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.